Good morning and good Sunday. I hope that this new day finds you well. My name is Leon Dunkley, and I'm honored to serve here at North Universalist Chapel Society, or North Chapel, in Woodstock, Vermont. I'm very pleased that we're joined this morning by Pati Hernández. I will let Kathy do some introductory work, one of the co-chairs of our board, later in the service. Right now, I want to invite you all to just settle in and enjoy the beautiful light of this morning and increased warmth from the beautiful days but cold days that we've been having. I invite you to silence your cell phones, and if you're new to North Chapel or visiting for the first time, we would love to keep in touch. Please sign the book at the back in the narthex by the front door before you leave, so we can stay in touch. Before we get going today, I just wanted to offer a couple words on a program that North Chapel is leading in the Upper Valley. It's called the Brave Light Youth Exchange Project. It's something that we started. North Chapel began a process maybe 4 years ago. Chris Bartlett and Judy Williamson got together and said we should put together what they called a Children and Youth Task Force, which was comprised of leaders in the North Chapel community as well as youth leaders in the Woodstock area, including some people related to people in our own congregation. And we talked for about a year. Actually, we talked for the better part of 2 years. And came up with the idea that what we really needed to do was come up with an experience that challenged youth in the most powerful of ways, and that introduced them to people that they would not know otherwise. So starting this summer, we'll be meeting with a group of kids from the Boston area, from churches in Taunton and Dorchester, and we will be going to an island off the coast of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, one of my favorite places, Star Island. We'll go for 3 days, 3.5 days, and we'll have a chance to talk about issues like sustainability and climate change, and how racial justice best works in our world these days. One last thing before we close. We were able to, well, first of all, this is going to cost North Chapel about $130,000 over the course of 2 years. So we started fundraising about 2 years ago, and we got a $90,000 grant from the Canada Foundation, which was beautiful. Canada, their largest grants are $300,000. We're new to that organization, they don't know us. So off the jump, with North Chapel's track record, but with a fledgling program, they are supporting us as powerfully as they can. The Unitarian Universalist Funding Panel out of the Unitarian Universalist Association also gave $20,000. We also got money from the Byrne Foundation, and some private donors who prefer to remain anonymous. But we're off to a fabulous start. We've got about between 12 and 15 kids, and a good team of adults to annoyingly keep them safe while we are spending our time together. And the last thing I'll say is that we'll be joined by two exquisite speakers. Author, lawyer, native woman from Maine now is a woman named Sherry Mitchell. I invite you to look her up online. She's a fantastic presence. She understands the sacred ways of the world, and she is one of the foremost, most authoritative speakers about Native issues in our region. So Sherry will be joining us, and also joining us is a man named Tim DeChristopher. I don't know if you know that name. You might know that name. Tim DeChristopher is an environmentalist, and he understood that the lands in Utah were under threat of purchase by a corporation. So he went to the land auction and grabbed a paddle, because that's how you vote. You raise a little paddle, and your paddle has a number on it. His paddle was bidder number 70. And when it came time to purchase the land, he kept bidding on it. And finally, at the end of the day, he was the last bidder, going once, going twice, sold for $1.4 million to bidder number 70. And as is the culture, after you're done, as you leave, you drop off your $1.4 million check to the auction leader before you leave. So when he was leaving, of course, they were eager to chase him down. He just bought a lot of land. And they said, "Can we have your check?" And he said, "Oh, I don't have any money." I just needed to prevent the sale of that land, okay, which happens to be against the law. Okay, it's the tort equivalent of theft. So he prevented the sale, and he was taken to court, and he spent some time for that. But he was trying to say, what do we need to do in order to generate the stories about how to interrupt the flow of corporate capital against the resources that make us healthy and alive, against the people who are living on those lands. So we're going to be joined by two very powerful speakers, and we will report back to you all the brilliant things that we learn along that way. I was offered a message recently by a friend of mine who said she was going out west to the Seattle area. She, my friend Erica Higgins, and he, my friend John Fadum, were going to Washington State because a hero of ours named Joni Mitchell gave a solo concert last night. In bitterness and in the language of my youth, I cursed them out of jealousy. And in fairness, they accepted my attempted humor. I met a friend of spirit. He drank and he womanized. And I sat before his sanity. I was holding back from crying. And he saw my complications and he mirrored me back, simplified. And we laughed how our perfections would always be denied. Heart and humor, he said, and humility will lighten up your heavy load. And I left him then for the refuge of the roads. These are the words of Joni Mitchell from 1976. If there were a way for her to tell her story any more beautifully than she does in music, I would be utterly amazed. For those who are able to tell the story that deepen our understanding and our experience of life, may we be grateful for what they offer. And may we take in that gift reflectively as we enter a time of meditation.
Good morning. I first met Pati Hernández when I was working at Southeast State Correctional Facility, and she came in to do a program called Telling My Story. The premise of the program is Patti would work with both incarcerated women and Dartmouth students within the walls of the correctional facility. They would create a storyline based on their own experience and create a play that would be performed for the other incarcerated women and guests invited from the community. Sounds like a great idea, right? It certainly was from the social justice perspective and from the point of view of the incarcerated women who are able to participate in such an innovative program. From the perspective of security and operations, it was a nightmare. It was unheard of at that time to allow students from outside work side by side with the incarcerated population and then invite community members in. Some staff thought it was crazy, but we did it. From the first time I met Patti, who greeted me with one of her signature hugs, her warmth, kindness, and creativity just drew me in. She gathered up the group of women who wanted to participate and dug in. I don't want to say too much about the program, as I imagine that is what Patti will be sharing with you today. But there are two distinct memories I have of the time Patti worked with the women at the facility that continue to warm me to this day. The first is the image of Patti teaching the women at the facility African dance as a way to warm them up for developing their story and performance. Southeast State was a pretty unique correctional facility, and there was lots of outdoor space, and the facility was surrounded by a beautiful Vermont landscape, albeit surrounded by razor wire lined fence. I used to love looking out my office window at Patti and the women moving to the African music in their bare feet in the grass. As you can imagine, the pathway to prison is filled with hurt, trauma, and violence, especially for women. The women Patti was working with had pretty distorted relationships with their bodies. To see the women following Patti's example, moving to the music, was heartwarming. You could see over the weeks of the program, the women standing a little taller, moving a bit more gracefully, and reconnecting with a sense of themselves that they had lost along the way. My other favorite memory is performance night, when the incarcerated women and Dartmouth students appeared on stage in costumes fitting the poignant stories that they played out. If you didn't know who was who, you couldn't tell. The participants found out they shared more in common than they had differences. The incarcerated women discovered that Dartmouth students had struggles and trauma too, and the Dartmouth students discovered the incarcerated women had all kinds of strength, resilience, even humor, despite the horrendous situations they had been in over the years. And this is the beauty of Patti. She has spent her life helping people break down barriers and find commonality. She has done this with incarcerated people, unhoused people, people suffering with substance issues. She sees the beauty in all of us and helps us connect because we all have great value and worth. If we could all look at those around us through Patti's eyes, the world would be such a better place. Thanks so much for speaking with us today, Patti, and sharing your wisdom and joy.
Hello, everybody. I'm speechless. I can't talk. I'm very moved. All right. It'll pass, promise.
Doesn't have to.
I want to.
Doesn't have to.
That's true. It's also true. That's how we deal, right? That's how we all deal. I have to say, I was moved from the beginning. I'm always moved when I see people together. When humanity shows its best. when I see the beauty and the strength of humanity and the desire also, right? We're very tired right now. I'm very tired. It's painful what we see. It's painful what we experience, but it's also just having these spaces lifts me up all the time, and it gives me hope and strength, and I'm very stubborn. I keep going. You know, my nickname is Pushy Patty, and she knows that. So, but I wanna thanks for such a beautiful singing and music. It was very soothing. Thanks for being here. Thanks for inviting me. Leon and I have always been connected. And Kathy is just, we have such a long history since 2005, I believe it's when I started at the facility. And it's interesting to hear her talking, because actually she was, as I was telling Leon, she was such a bridge. The prison system is very lineal and difficult and dry, right? And Kathy, Pushy Patty would go, and Kathy would go, and make all these ideas possible, basically. So I do want to say that whatever I do, I don't do it alone. There's no way for me to be able to do anything that I do without other people, the support and the commitment of other people, right? Oh my gosh, and let's look at, she's here too. Ivy Schweitzer is here, and Ivy is my collaborator and for years and years, and she opened doors at Dartmouth College. She was the one that brought me to Dartmouth. She's guilty of that. And then right next to her, there's a Kathy, who has been a great collaborator of mine for the longest time, bringing a very different dimension to collaboration from personal experience and dealing with adversity in her reality. We are all basically, if we're not together, we really don't function. That's the way it feels to me in many ways. Telling my story is really a program that I started developing in mid-90s in New York City, working with Latin American women that were learning how to write and read in Spanish. And it has many iterations since then. It's like, it changes because that's the nature a little bit of the work. I moved to Vermont, and that's when I started working with incarcerated people and people in recovery and people with abuse, mental and sexual abuse. It just, I would say, people in behind very thick, invisible walls that we are part of building them also as part of society, actively or inactively. Telling my story what it is, it's a program that works on this development of self-awareness and communication skills through the arts. This is my official definition of it. By putting the arts to the service of the situation. And the idea is that I am not a director, I'm a facilitator, right? And the idea is to listen to people. The idea is to hear voices, the voices of people and the group. The idea is to create trust. The idea is to build a space in where people can feel that they hopefully belong. I think one of the problems that I feel when the challenges that I have to take every single time, we are always trying to fit in. right? And we belong to, I wish, but I can't, this, right? We're always trying to fit in, and that's very painful. I see that that's very painful. So telling my story tries to provide those kind of spaces in where we mess up a lot, right? And we can, so people can feel that we can make mistakes and own our mistakes. And I mean, we are incredibly imperfect and beautifully imperfect. And we're trying all the time to be perfect, to nail it, to control it, to know it, to all of that, right? And yet when we're exhausted. I remember working with the students at Dartmouth, and that, in a way, innocence, and they were high achievers, beautiful people, trying so hard, and it was so heartbreaking to see how they couldn't even, they would get so intimidated by relating to people that were not similar to them, right? What do I do with that? So telling my story is a lot about creating this space. It is an artificial space because it's not, right? It's to bring unlike communities together. And we need to do that right now. It's crazy. But we do need to do that now. And it's very needed. And every time that people, okay, I have more and more programs to run, I go like, oh my gosh, it's like, I don't want to be so successful, right? I don't want to be needed in that way. But it's okay, you know, we need to do what we need to do also. But it does speak of our reality, of our society, of our communities, and that's what I try to do. I want to tell you a little bit. This is my mess, so I'm a very messy person, right? My whole world, it's like works like that, functions like that. For the first time, I did this kind of sketchy. Because in the last program there was this young person that was fantastic, and she took notes by drawing and then taking notes. And I was like, ooh, that's so cool, I want to do that. So I'm imitating her. She was quite an inspiration. But I want to tell you a little bit this idea of time, because the title of the talk, when I was asked, I said, oh, what do I write? I get very nervous because I'm a big improviser. I don't think I'm a good speaker. I am intellectually very insecure. I'm a great faker. and that's how I overcome all of this, right? But it's also challenging to me, and I always say, when people ask me, when Kathy approached me, oh no, Kathy, why did you ask that? But okay, I'll do it, right? And it's an important challenge also, because it is for me important to do this. But being with others together inside the belly of the beast in courage, strength, in resistance to reclaim our humanity. I've been working for quite a while since I left Dartmouth in 2020 with the community in the outside, right? On the outside, and we pretty much have been working on the theme of race, class, and gender based on our reality, right? In 2020, how everything exploded, especially in terms of race and class, because the health problem really brought those two very important realities to light, and to see how much in pain we are, basically. So I've been working on this space that I tried to create, in where, you know, there's time and space to create community, right? We talked about equity, inclusivity, belonging, trust, diversity, acceptance, and they're great words, I'm very inspired by them. But I do believe and I feel strongly that we live it in the abstract world. We just we kind of feel okay. Yeah, it's okay. The actual footwork, what I call the footwork, it's something else, and that's where the idea of being with others comes to me. It's like the need of being with others. I don't need to know who you are. Why do I need to know who you are? Why do I need to interrogate you? Why do I need to educate you? Or to educate, I am my own responsibility. And how we can do that, and to me, what is so motivating and inspiring is that when I am with others, I learn so much. And not about others, but about myself. And that's the place in the world that I want to keep nurturing, because bottom line is that I don't have any control of anyone, and I shouldn't have any control of anyone. And I like the idea of taking a leap of faith with others. I like the idea of being lost in trust, in hope. And it's a little crazy. I know I'm crazy, but it has a foundation, because we don't, in telling my story, we really do things. The belly of the beast is about that. It's about kind of confronting this theoretical world that we conformed with and we're used to. So I try to, I'm going to tell you just a very short story of one of the latest programs, just to talk about the belly of the beast. For me, in my experience, when people, I had this program in where there was one participant that was, I actually knew this person, and I knew that person was difficult, and for some people, problematic. And what do you do with that? Maybe you shouldn't get that person, because we want to have a nice process. The process can always be easy. The process is, to me, my experience is that the process is always easy because we're hungry for something else. So people that come to join telling my story are always, we're always like, yeah, let's do it. That's what we are. So that's a given. People ask me all the time, do you select people? And I go like, no. And I know that people are problematic again, right? That whole thing. And I think I've had the most beautiful surprises with these problematic situations. And this is one of them. So what I did was this person was very, they had a lot of mental health issues, a lot of interrupting all the time, not listening, telling my stories about listening and speaking while withholding judgment and all, and it's like, it wouldn't work for that person. That wouldn't work, right? How do you do it? Then they truly, it created a problem, right? It sucked a lot of energy from others, and other people also need space, need time, and they couldn't. This person could not provide that. And then this is an intensive, right now it's an intensive version. So the first 2 days, okay, well, kind of, okay, yeah, we're going, kind of. And at the end of the second day, another person exploded and said, that's it, I can't. That's it, too much. I can't breathe. And I tried to talk to this person, and right, but that person had to leave that. They were very, very, very upset. And I took this the difficult person back home myself, and I did this. I talked to them just to try to make sense a little bit of the situation, and also to own our actions and inactions, right? For them to see what was the consequences of taking too much space or not taking enough space. It's the same problem, basically. Anyway, we did, that person came back the next day. The other person, I had no idea. I spent the whole night, I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. And the next day I get this email in the morning saying, I'm really pissed, but I need to finish this. This is important for me. I'll be there, here's my testimonial. Because everybody has to write a testimonial. And I had read the testimonial of the other person. And when this whole thing happened on Friday night, I said, this is a clash of pains. That's how I called it, without knowing necessarily. But it felt like that. I read this testimonial, both, and I compared it with the other one, and they were exactly the same. And that was it, right, to me. And I was just, I got actually very excited, but it was so moving, so humbling to see this reality. That's pain. That's what do we do with pain? How do I hold on to pain in a nurturing way? So we got there, we started the day, and people were very relieved. People in the group were absolutely fantastic. They took care of one person, right? Do the talking walls, and there was a lot of difficult energy right there. And every single person contributed in the most powerful way to provide what we needed to move as a group. And I was just so, and nobody defines things. I mean, it's messy. Telling my story is messy. I'm not telling people what to do, because I know that people can find those spaces. We can guide one another, right? But I don't want to be a leader or a facilitator that it's expecting from you. I'm a collaborator. So though all those approaches, and it was so beautiful to see the power of that group and how everything just came to place. So at the end of the day, they did get this person, the difficult person, decided not to do not to read their testimonial, but to have somebody to read their testimonial. And that was really beautiful. They sat on the front, and they never, ever blinked and never talked. And before, it was all the time like, you know, this reaction that this person had on a regular basis because of the frustration, that the pain, to me it was all pain and frustration and the inability to really connect with others, right? So it was fantastic to see them sitting there just so focused, and then they said, wow, their testimonial is just like mine, the same experience, but they were so courageous. I need to learn how to do that, right? And it was just, it was just such a joyous moment. And to me, that's exactly what you're right. How do we walk with pain and joy hand in hand? And it was, I was left without, and I don't know how it happened. I don't know what I do. I really don't, and I don't care. I'm not interested in knowing what I do. I'm interested in doing it. I am grateful that I can do it, that's all. But I can't define it. I can't, I don't know. At the end, I'm just gonna tell you a little thing. At the end, we were celebrating, and I had 2 cakes, one for the person that had quit and came back, and because they had graduated that day, so we were celebrating. And the other one was for the group. And so there was a carrot cake and a chocolate cake, and the person that was being celebrated says, the 2 of them come facing one another, and everybody's joyous, right? I mean, they were very happy, and one said to the other one, "Do you want what do you want, carrot cake or chocolate cake?" And the other woman was very taken aback. I mean, very surprised, because they thought that it was not going to be possible to connect with anyone, and that people hated her. So I didn't mean to say the gender, just because I'm trying to keep it very anonymous. I apologize for that. And they looked and said, "Chocolate, I like chocolate. I'll get it right away." And they were just like so beautiful, the 2 of them, and they didn't have to say anything else. And there was the cake, there was the other woman, and I said, okay, that's why I do this, right? It's not a solution. Telling my story has no answers and no solutions. It's the most imperfect program, but it's a worthwhile experience to go through. So and that's the belly of the beast, and the importance of the belly of the beast, and of just being there with others. I don't know the timing. I don't know who people are or are not. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in people and humanity, and I do believe in humanity. And I believe in all of you. Thank you.
Whether our journeys take us near or far, as our stories unfold before us, may we always find home. May we always find the path that leads us to those with whom we are deeply connected. Water knows down, so may we follow the path of water back to one another. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.